So Jeff, welcome this morning, and I'll leave things over to you.
Hey, thanks, Eric, and good morning. Follow up on some of what Christie's covered this morning, but cool temperatures, obviously, the major story here for much of the last few weeks. I resisted putting another snow-related image up for our title page here today, but instead I have an illustration here of cold air invading from the high latitudes of North America. And that's what you've got. What you see here are temperature anomalies at the surface yesterday during the unseasonably cold day. More snow in many parts of the state, just very much more like early March or late February than the third week in April. In many spots, more than 20 degrees below normal for temperatures yesterday. But it's interesting to note here, and you can see that on this the graphic here, with the coldest temperatures of the largest anomalies below normal being the sort of this purple pink color, and then going towards positive anomalies not that far away to our west, out over the Great Plains and so forth. It was actually above normal. I noticed last night that the high temperature in Des Moines yesterday was 78. So we're not that far away. The border of this air mass, or the western range of this warm air or cold air mass that we're in, is not that far away. But as you'll see, there's more of the same. And the forecast here is for continuation of where we've been. Over the past week, though, mean temperature departures, no surprise on the left here, 10 degrees or more Fahrenheit below normal for the past week. That's goes without saying. It's been unseasonably cold. In some cases, actually near record. We had a hard freeze again yesterday morning with some near record low temperatures for the date. It actually was in the teens in a couple spots in the interior lower peninsula yesterday. For most areas, it was also drier than normal. On the right-hand side here are precipitation totals for the past week. And with the exception of the far southern tier of counties across the lower peninsula, and then another area up in the far northern part of the lower peninsula, it was definitely drier than normal. Most areas picked up less than a quarter of an inch. And looking ahead here, it appears that we're going to have a more active weather pattern. So we continue with the cooler than normal temperatures, but there will be significantly more opportunities or chances for precipitation than we've had during the last week. I guess that's one of the take-homes here. Degree day totals with the colder than normal temperatures, and this is quite a difference from what we saw last week. Now, at least, several days minimum to 1 to maybe more than 2 calendar weeks behind normal in terms of our degree day accumulation. This one these totals go back to the beginning of March, but we are, given the recent couple of weeks and given the forecast, we are going to start the season significantly behind where we are. And Christie showed the degree days there. It's completely consistent with that, but we are falling further behind each day. We should see, for example, in East Lansing, our normal high temperature right now is all the way up in the low 60s. And yesterday, we didn't make it out of the 30s. So it gives you an idea about how far below we are from where we should be at this time of the year. Soil temperatures have also fallen off significantly. These are 2-inch average bare soil temperatures here. These actually go through Tuesday, but with the colder temperatures, most of them have fallen off a good 10 degrees from where they were a week to a week and a half ago. And so most parts of the state we're dealing with 2-inch temperatures in the 30s and in the 40s. And it depends, of course, there's some diurnal daily changes in that, but these are the average values, but they have fallen off significantly from where they had been a little bit earlier in the season. Well, where are we headed? I mentioned more of the same, at least for the short-term future here. But this morning we've got, again, this cold Canadian air mass that we've been stuck in here for the last couple of days. The center of that's up over James Bay here in Ontario. And then off to our south and west, we have a long frontal boundary, which marks that, again, that western and southern edge of this air mass that you saw in my title slide. And there's another big weather system here across the lower to mid-Mississippi Valley. That's been a repeated theme here for the last couple of weeks. The main storm track we've been under northwesterly flow aloft. We've talked about that in previous discussions here. But the main storm track has really been across the southern part of the U.S., including lots of precipitation and some pretty a major severe weather outbreak or two in this as well. That's going to stay the same. I think that very likely that we will see more of this coming up over the next few weeks or next couple of weeks. This particular system will likely remain south. It might brush the far southern lower peninsula with some precip. Down here on the lower left, this is the most recent radar image that we have, and you can see the northern fringe of precipitation with that system making it up into central sections of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. But I don't think it's going to make much more northerly headway than that. We still, though, do have some residual precipitation left, and it's mixed. At best, some of these areas are still seeing snowfall with this, but we will see a gradual, a noticeable warming. It's certainly moderation, I bet a better term for it, in temperatures here the next couple of days. And more of the precipitation will fall in liquid form than frozen, and that's another change from where we've been. So look for, at least across the southern, let's call it 2/3 of lower Michigan, look for a continued threat of showers today. Very likely not heavy. It'll be, hit and miss. Many areas will remain dry and cloudy with easterly winds. Again, that's been another repeated phenomenon here recently, but there will still be the threat to, during the day, especially the middle of the day into the afternoon hours will probably be the greatest, but many areas will remain dry. By tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, forecast map, not much difference in terms of where that front is at, but you can see the one weather system moves off to our east out over the middle Atlantic, and then another begins to form here in the Central Plains. That's the next weather system that will affect us. That said, tomorrow, Friday, the day in between these systems, looks like to be dry statewide, and that may be one of the only days, possibly Monday of next week, that we see dry conditions, and we'll call it fair to partly sunny skies during the day, but certainly dry with little or no threat of precipitation tomorrow. But then by the middle of the day on Saturday, this next weather system here approaches from the south and west, and will bring a more widespread threat of widespread precipitation, especially across the lower peninsula. And with that, I'd even call it maybe, again, the southern half of lower Michigan will have the greatest threat of precipitation. And totals with this one actually could be significant, quarter to half inch totals in many cases, with some isolated values up above that, maybe to half to an inch. So this next weather system that comes Saturday and into early Sunday will have more precipitation and higher totals than what's been observed here recently. After that weather system moves by to the east, again, maybe a bit of a drying off on Monday, and then the next weather system after that, you can see it's an active weather pattern, likely arriving overnight Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday. And that one also, similar to the system on Saturday, that one also has the potential for fairly widespread precip, and that would include northern parts of the state that probably will be missed here on Saturday. So statewide, the next chance for seeing significant precip again early next week in the Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe. And so when you look at what's in the gauge here, by next week, the potential, at least for southern parts of the state, is for significant, more precip than we've seen in a while, but the totals are highly variable from north to south, from less than a half of an inch in the upper peninsula and northern sections of the state to more than an inch to actually maybe approaching 2 inches in parts of the southern lower, and even including maybe the central lower peninsula as well. So a greater threat for precipitation than we've had here in a few weeks. Temperatures continuing, though, to remain well below normal. Looking out into the medium time frame here, how long does this continue? Well, we keep the models keep teasing us with maybe a gradual moderation, and they're still doing the same thing. But that said, we still have here for both the 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day time frames a similar story: northwesterly flow across the Great Lakes and into the northeastern part of the U.S., ridging out over the west, and that still suggests that there will be more Canadian air moving into the lakes, and a strong likelihood, again, that our temperatures, maybe while not quite as extreme as what we've seen over the last week in terms of especially the hard freezes, we will still remain below normal, and that's what both again 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks are suggesting. As you can see here, the mean temperatures over all state and region wide are all cooler than normal. Precipitation wise, This one is actually calling for the 8 to 14 day time frame near normal, so no forecast direction. The 6 to 10 day actually suggests maybe a little bit above normal, and I think that reflects some of what you've just seen here next week, with at least 2, maybe 3 weather systems lined up to come through the state with greater precipitation than what we've seen. Finally, there's a new ensemble of long lead outlooks, and there are some interesting changes. The outlook here for the month of May is on the top, with mean temperatures on the upper left and precipitation totals on the upper right. And this outlook now officially calls, so the EC stands for equal chances, basically no forecast direction for the month of May for either mean temperatures or precipitation totals. That's a change. We had earlier, we were pushed towards the warmer and wetter than normal scenario for the month of May and earlier issuances of this, but it has backed off. And I think that's just, the reason is because we're likely to see, again, the weather pattern that we're locked into right now continue into at least the first week of May, and possibly even a little bit longer than that. But right now, the guess is that this medium range, or this northwesterly flow pattern that we're in, will continue at least in the first week. And these outlooks reflect that. Actually, the chances or enhanced chances for cooler than normal temperatures. Now, that said, moving beyond that here for the 3-month May through July period, and this would also be true for June through August, and for those next couple core summer timeframes, the outlooks still call for warmer, or at least our forecast direction towards warmer and wetter than normal. And that's been the case for some time. Most of this is based on numerical forecast guidance. We just don't have anything going on in the Pacific right now that would lead temperature precipitation in one direction or the other. Most of this is based strongly on the numerical forecast guidance. So no ENSO, no La Nina, none of that right now. We're still neutral and expected to continue neutral at least through the spring and into the summer. So summarizing here again, more of the same certainly in terms of temperature, but the change would be more precipitation than what we've seen recently. And again, those totals are definitely higher than we'd like to see at this time of the year in this season, but it still will remain cool. And especially across southern parts of the state, it will be cool and wet. The medium range, continuation of the same pattern, but there are hints, again, by the time we get into the early part of May, that there will be some noticeable weakening of this pattern, or more west to east flow with some moderation in temperature. And then as we just saw, our long lead outlooks are still calling for warmer and wetter conditions here as we move into the late spring and into the growing season. And with that, I'll move on, and with a reminder, next week our guest, Dr. Mani Singh, will be with us and talking about corn and soybean planting considerations. Just as a reminder for next week, that's the 30th of April. And I believe that takes me to the end here, if anyone has any questions.
Great, thanks, Jeff.